It started with the way his hand lingered on the gearshift, just close enough for me to feel the warmth radiating from his skin. Al's eyes flicked toward me between the passing glow of streetlights, a silent dare hiding in his smirk. My heart pounded against the leather seat, knowing exactly what he wanted, and knowing tonight, I wasn't going to make him wait any longer. Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. The night had that kind of quiet that makes every sound sharper, our breaths, the faint hum of the tires on the road, the click of the turn signal. Al had offered to drive me home from my friend's place, but from the moment I slid into the passenger seat, I could tell this ride wasn't about getting home quickly. We'd been married for 3 years, but lately, our nights felt more like polite exchanges of routines than the kind of moments that once made us reckless. That was until this week, until the look he gave me at dinner. It was subtle, the kind of look that doesn't need words, like he was holding on to a thought he wouldn't dare speak out loud, not yet. He drove slower than usual tonight, the city lights washing over his profile in flashes. Every time we hit a red light, his hand would rest on the center console, inches from mine, the space between us charged. I could smell his cologne, a faint mix of cedar and something warm, and it pulled me back to nights when we couldn't keep our hands off each other. I tried to act like I didn't notice, staring out at the blur of buildings, but the corners of his mouth lifted, just barely. He knew I'd noticed. He always knew. We passed a quiet stretch of road, and the temptation grew heavier, like a weight in the air. I caught him glancing at me again, this time longer, his thumb tapping against the wheel as if trying to keep himself in check. It was that same silent question from before, one I'd ignored for too long. And that's when I decided, tonight, I wouldn't ignore it. I shifted in my seat, leaning just slightly toward him, my fingers brushing over the edge of his arm. His grip on the steering wheel tightened, a sharp breath escaping him. The sound of the engine filled the silence between us, but beneath it, there was something louder, anticipation. Al's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. He just kept driving, waiting to see if I'd really follow through. My heart was pounding now, not from nerves, but from the thrill of knowing exactly how much control I had in that moment. The road stretched ahead, empty, the faint orange glow of street lamps marking our way. I could feel his pulse in the way he shifted in his seat, the way his gaze dipped toward me and then back to the road. And as the next light turned red, I made my move. I didn't think about where we were or who might see. All I could think about was the look in his eyes, and how this was the moment we'd both been waiting for. But I had no idea just how much harder it would be for him to keep driving once I did. Have you ever felt like this in your own life? Share your story in the comments, I'd love to read it. The red light held us there, frozen in that fragile space between impulse and action. My breath was shallow, my fingers resting just above his thigh, feeling the heat of him through the fabric. Al's eyes stayed forward, but I could see the edge of his smile and the faint reflection on the windshield. It wasn't a smug smile, it was the kind that comes from knowing exactly what you've been wanting is finally about to happen. When the light turned green, he didn't floor it. He eased us forward, slow, like he was stretching the moment on purpose, making me feel every second of it. The hum of the engine seemed lower, deeper, like the car itself could sense what was happening between us. We'd met 5 years ago on a rainy Thursday, of all days. I was working late at the coffee shop downtown, and he came in soaked through, looking for warmth. I remember the way he wrapped his hands around the cup I handed him, like he was holding on to something precious. Back then, everything between us was fast, every glance, every laugh, every kiss. Now, our pace had shifted into something steadier, but tonight, it felt like the old US was fighting its way back through. The city was behind us now, the streets darker, quieter. I could feel the thrum of my pulse in my ears, each beat syncing with the rhythm of the tires on the road. My body leaned toward him without thinking, drawn by something more magnetic than logic. Al's right hand left the wheel for a moment, brushing the back of mine. It was barely a touch, but it said everything. My heart caught in my throat. That single touch carried years of familiarity, 1,000 private jokes, every slow morning and long night we'd shared. And under all of that, the hunger that had never really gone away. I could sense him struggling to keep his attention on the road. His jaw worked, his breathing uneven. Neither of us spoke, because if we did, the air between us might have cracked wide open. And maybe, that was exactly what I wanted. The road curved ahead, the glow of another red light waiting in the distance. And I had the feeling that once we reached it, neither of us would be the same. The next red light stopped us again, the stillness pressing in like a weight. My hand was still near his thigh, but now the air between us felt heavier, as if we'd crossed some invisible threshold we couldn't step back from. Al glanced at me, just for a second, and it was enough. His eyes held something I couldn't quite name, want, yes, but also hesitation. That hesitation stung more than I expected. I'd thought about this moment for weeks, maybe months. I'd imagined him pulling me closer without a second thought, but now, there was a pause in him, a flicker of doubt. The light turned green, and he didn't say a word. The road ahead stretched out, empty, yet I could feel him pulling away in some unseen way. It wasn't physical, his hand still brushed mine on the console, but emotionally, he was retreating into himself. A knot formed in my chest. Was he holding back from me, or was there something else in his head? Something I didn't know? I leaned back slightly, watching the road but feeling my pulse race faster. Every small motion he made, the tightening of his jaw, the way his eyes darted between the windshield and the rearview mirror, made me wonder what he was thinking. We passed a quiet gas station, its lights buzzing in the dark. He slowed a little, and for a moment I thought he might pull over, but he didn't. Instead, his hand gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles pale. "I've been thinking about something," he said finally, voice low. It wasn't the playful, daring tone from before, it was heavier, edged with something I couldn't read. My throat felt dry. About what? He didn't answer right away. The silence stretched so long I almost wished I hadn't asked. When he finally spoke, his words weren't clear enough to give me the whole picture, but they were enough to unsettle me. About us. And where we're going. The way he said it, I couldn't tell if it was a promise or a warning. My mind swirled with questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. And in that moment, I realized that what I thought was only temptation might be leading me somewhere far more complicated than I'd planned. The road had narrowed into a single lane, flanked by tall trees that swallowed the light. Each bend in the pavement felt like a countdown, the kind you can't see but feel in your chest. I could sense Al's energy shifting again, closer, yet still holding something back, as if he was balancing on the same ledge I was. The quiet between us wasn't empty, it was thick, charged, every heartbeat amplifying the pull I felt toward him. My hand was still near his, and this time when our fingers brushed, he didn't pull away. His touch lingered, a warm line across my skin, and my breath caught in my throat. But there was something in his eyes when he glanced at me, a mixture of want and restraint that only tightened the knot inside me. It wasn't rejection. It wasn't fear. It was as if he was daring me to take that final step, to push past whatever wall he'd built tonight. We slowed for another red light, and for a moment, the whole world seemed to still. The air was warm inside the car, carrying the faint scent of his cologne, and I could hear the rhythm of his breathing, steady, controlled, like he was fighting something inside himself. I wanted to close the distance. I wanted to erase the hesitation. But a sliver of doubt crept in, whispering questions I didn't want to answer. What if I crossed the line and couldn't go back? What if the look in his eyes changed once I did? His fingers flexed against the steering wheel, and in the reflection of the windshield, I saw the faintest smirk tug at his lips, like he knew exactly what was happening inside my head. "Still thinking," he murmured, voice low enough to blend with the hum of the engine. "Always," I whispered back. The light turned green, but he didn't move right away. We stayed there for one impossible heartbeat longer, caught in a suspended moment that felt like it could tip either way. When he finally drove forward, it was slow, deliberate, like he was taking me towards something inevitable. And with every passing second, I knew we were only one breath away from crossing into a night neither of us could take back. The road opened into a long, empty stretch, the kind where there's no reason to slow down, but Al did. His hand left the wheel, hovering for a second before settling on my knee. It wasn't just the touch, it was the certainty in it, the way his fingers pressed gently, as if he was claiming something without saying a word. The air inside the car seemed to thicken. I couldn't tell if I was holding my breath or if I'd just forgotten how to breathe altogether. My mind flashed back to the moment earlier in the evening, the way his eyes had lingered, the silent dare I'd accepted when I moved closer. It was all still there, in the way he touched me now. But then, just as the heat between us reached that unbearable point, he pulled his hand back. Not slowly, but quick, like he'd been caught. I turned to him, ready to ask why, but his jaw was tight again, his eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. "What is it?" I asked, my voice softer than I meant. He didn't answer right away, and that silence made my chest tighten. "Finally," he said, "we're not alone." I twisted in my seat, looking out the back window. Far behind us, two headlights glowed in the darkness, following at an unchanging distance. My heart picked up for a different reason now. "You think they're following us?" He gave a small shrug, but it wasn't casual, his knuckles were white on the wheel again. "They've been behind us since we left the city." The warmth between us cooled into something sharper. The temptation from minutes ago was still there, humming low in my body, but now it was tangled with a thread of unease. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "Not stop," he said quickly, his tone making it clear that was not up for debate. "Not yet." The streetlights became fewer and farther between, until the road was lit only by our own headlights. The other car stayed in sight, always far enough to keep from being obvious, but never far enough to disappear. Al's hand found mine again on the console, not in the same teasing way as before, but firm, protective. "If I tell you to hold on," he said, "you hold on." I nodded, the unspoken mix of danger and desire wrapping around us tighter than the darkness outside. And somewhere deep inside, I knew, whatever was waiting at the end of this road wasn't just going to change tonight. It might change everything. The road curved sharply, and Al took it faster than I expected, his grip on the wheel steady but urgent. The headlights behind us faltered for a second, disappearing into the bend, and in that moment, the air inside the car shifted again. We were alone. He exhaled hard, almost like he'd been holding his breath the entire drive. Then, without a word, he eased the car onto a narrow overlook, the city lights spread out far below us like a blanket of gold. The engine idled low, the night wrapping around us in silence. I turned to him, my chest still tight from the adrenaline and everything that had been simmering between us all night. "So, was that really someone following us?" "Maybe," he said, his voice low, almost distracted. Then his eyes met mine, and I saw it, the pull, the hunger, the unspoken promise we'd both been circling around since the first streetlight flickered past. And just like that, the hesitation was gone. His hand slid behind my neck, pulling me closer, his forehead brushing mine. It wasn't rushed, it was deliberate, like he wanted me to feel every second of the choice he was making. I could feel his breath against my lips, warm and steady, and all the tension we'd been carrying poured into that closeness. "I've been waiting for you to do that," I whispered. His smirk was faint, almost shy. "No. I've been waiting for you to let me." And then he kissed me, deep, unhurried, like the whole night had been leading to this one moment. The city lights blurred behind my closed eyes, the hum of the car blending with the rush of my pulse. When we finally pulled back, he rested his hand over mine, grounding me. The car behind us? I knew who it was. I blinked. "What?" "Tom. From work. He's been trying to figure out if I was lying about where I've been spending my nights." "And where have you been spending them?" I asked, half teasing, half bracing for his answer. His smile turned wicked. Right here. With you. It was the truth, but the way he said it left me with the uneasy feeling that maybe there was more to that story, one I wasn't ready to hear tonight. The city lights below us glittered like a living thing, breathing in the cool night air, pulsing with quiet energy. Al's hand stayed over mine, his thumb tracing small circles that told me more than words could. The rush of the drive, the strange shadow of the car behind us, the long hours of unspoken tension, all of it was dissolving now into something softer, deeper. I leaned back in my seat, feeling my heartbeat finally slow, and studied him. You knew it was Tom. You weren't worried. He gave a small shrug, that half-smile tugging at his lips again. I was worried about you. About whether you'd still choose me tonight. The simplicity of it hit me harder than I expected. All night I'd been second-guessing his pauses, wondering if his hesitation meant he didn't want me like before. But here he was, admitting he'd been wondering the same thing. I thought about our early years together, the way we used to grab moments like they were oxygen, messy, impulsive, thrilling. Somewhere along the way, life had made us careful. Tonight, in that car, we'd both decided to be reckless again. Al, I said quietly, I didn't just choose you tonight. I've been choosing you every day. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he lifted my hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to my knuckles, slow and deliberate. It was the kind of gesture that said more than any perfect sentence ever could. We sat there for a while, the hum of the engine steady beneath us, until finally he started the drive back. The road was empty now, no headlights in the rear view, just the quiet stretch of asphalt carrying us forward. Somewhere between the curves and the streetlights, I realized something. Tonight wasn't about the danger of being followed or the thrill of breaking the rules. It was about finding our way back to the place where a single glance could say everything. And as we neared the city again, with his hand resting warm over mine and his eyes flicking toward me in that familiar, silent dare, I felt it. We had come full circle. The heat in that first moment, the one that made my heart pound when his hand lingered on the gear shift, was still there. Only now, it was laced with something even stronger. It was the quiet certainty that this was exactly where I belonged.